Hey, what's up, everybody? In this episode of Movie Time, Blake and I are talking about Thor, Love and Thunder. How is it? How did it compare to Ragnarok? Is Taika Waititi the right and correct director for this franchise? How was the humor? Was it too much? Was it too little? How was the action? How was the villain? Weak or strong? How was the chemistry between Jane Foster, that is Natalie Portman, and Chris Hemsworth's Thor? Was it great to see Natalie Portman back? Was it worth the wait? Any surprising cameos? And how about them post-credit scenes? Well, we're going to talk about all of that. Thor, Love and Thunder. We're going to stop talking, Rene. Let's just get to the show. All right, here we go. Sorry. Hey, what's up, everybody? Hey, what's going on? Welcome to a review edition of Movie Time. Got myself here, Rene, the low-key geek, and my buddy Blake, the wolf. What's going on, Blake?
Movie time is always a good time. For a good time, call movie time. What is up, Rene? I just sat through, endured, loved 2 hours of Thor, Love, and Thunder. And I'm happy to talk about that with you today.
Yeah, yes. And if you've missed the intro, we are going to be talking about Thor, Love and Thunder's non-spoiler and then some spoiler discussion. Keep an eye out on the prompts. I'll let you know when we're going to start getting into spoiler territory there, and then you'll also see like a little thing on the screen. But excited to talk to you as well, because I am very, very curious as to what you may have thought of this movie. You might be surprised about what I think. Who knows? We'll see, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And if you are new to the channel or listening to this for the first time, welcome aboard. This is Movie Time, where two guys just get together and talk about movies every week. And we at times do these reviews together, as well as talk about just anything movie related and all that. We bullshit, we joke around, we have fun, we have a good time. And we try to hawk and promote Blake's Letterboxd account. But if you like what you see and you want to hear more or watch more, make sure subscribe to the channel there on YouTube. Hit that like button. Make sure to touch that notification bell so that you could be notified every time a new video is uploaded. And then for audio listeners, you can find the LOWKEY GEEK channel there on your podcast platform of choice, and download this episode and many others directly from there. Let's talk about the latest and greatest from Marvel and Disney, Thor, Love and Thunder. It is the fourth in the Thor quote-unquote franchise or series of movies there. He's the only Marvel character that has this many movies dedicated just for him. So this definitely marked a big milestone there for the Marvel character. The great thing about this movie that a lot of people are excited for is because Taika Waititi returns to direct this movie after doing Ragnarok, which was Thor 3. And I think I really, really like the change in the Thor character at that moment. Because, for the longest time, they've been trying to push Thor as this very serious, God and everything like that. But I think later on they realized, wow, Chris Hemsworth is actually really funny. And he's a good delivery when it comes to comedy and all that. And they start to play around with it more. And then more and more, as you could see, Thor becoming a pretty funny person with his quips and the way he observes human life and everyday instances and all that stuff like that. Taika Waititi stepped in and took on full reign of turning Thor into this comedic character in the MCU. There was still a lot of, seriousness and, Thor dealing with the loss of his brother and, the loss of his mom and his dad and, and Asgard fell and everything like that. So it was basically like the loss of everything. And then we saw him take another more serious turn when the Avengers movies came out, Infinity War and Endgame, because you could see he's dealing with a lot, especially with what happened and everything. Thor, Love and Thunder pretty much picks up immediately after the events of Ragnarok. Is it Ragnarok? No. I want to say, I think the ending of Endgame. Because at the end of Endgame, we see him team up with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then they kind of fly off, and we don't know what was going to happen after that.
And the Fat
So,
Thor thing, where his body technically starts off
right,
Fat Thor, this one, which isn't a spoiler.
right, yeah. Yeah, you could see all that stuff in the trailer and everything like
His
that.
body is spoiled, but that's not a spoiler.
Right, right, yeah. So it takes off, immediately after that. I will say that I was not a huge fan of this movie. And for reasons I will say is because I love Taika Waititi. I think he is one of the funniest guys in Hollywood. I do like his content, as far as movies are concerned and TV programming. The humor is good when it comes to certain subjects. I think this was too much Taika Waititi. I think if you were to compare this and Ragnarok, the Taika level in Ragnarok was probably like a good, 6 or 7, right? Because there was still a good mix of seriousness and some drama and all that stuff like that. This is like 9, if not 10, as far as like the Taika humor and the Taika sense of directing. Because I felt like for the good, at least 20 minutes or 30 minutes, it was all jokes. It was just all quirkiness and joking. And, especially like when again, not spoilers, because you could see this in the trailer, like when he's with the Guardians of the Galaxy, it just like, there's no break. There's no break with the humor. It's just one after the other, one after the other, bomb, 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 funny, quip, 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 all that stuff like that. And I thought a lot of it was actually pretty cheesy and corny. I kind of rolled my eyes a lot in this movie. And if I did laugh, half of the time I laughed because I thought the thing was so stupid that I couldn't believe that they're doing it, or that someone said something, or whatever the case is. So, that's definitely one of the reasons why I was not a huge fan of this movie. And then there's some like choices as far as like character choices and all that stuff like that. And we'll talk more about that in the spoiler territory there. But I was definitely not so fond of some of the character choices and some of the kind of, I guess, lore choices as well. Like as far as like current Asgard and all that stuff like that. But I was still entertained. I will say I was still entertained. It wasn't a terrible movie. It's just not one of, in my opinion, not one of Marvel's strongest, especially recently. And I think if you've watched the episode where we talked about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, we kind of mentioned, or we talked briefly about, are we starting to get to that point where superhero movies are, there's a bit too much, right? And maybe, the thrill factor is somewhat gone, or whatever the case is. And, with Doctor Strange, I was kind of like 50-50 on how I felt about that movie too. And I think we mentioned it's really, really it's interesting to see what will happen when Thor comes out. Because if Thor comes out and you hear the mixed feelings again, then we may be getting to that point where, all right, should Marvel rethink some things, or maybe the Marvel formula is not working for maybe just me, right? Because I do feel like the general movie-going audience are going to love this movie. People who are not fully invested in the Thor comics and all the stuff that happens in the comics, and maybe are looking for a more serious Thor, if they love all that comedy and they wanted more of that from Ragnarok, then they're going to love this movie, because you get this times 10, really. But yeah, those are just initial thoughts there from me. Blake, take it away. I'm curious to hear what you're going to say about it all.
Well, I'm going to fight the good fight for those who can't fight good. To quote Taika Waititi's character in the movie Thor: Love and Thunder. I enjoyed it greatly, and I am basically target audience for Thor Ragnarok. It's maybe my top 3 MCU movies. Ragnarok is, and I did not mind the humor. I genuinely love Taika Waititi and his work. There was a time, I think it was post Jojo Rabbit, where I said, let me just watch as much Taika Waititi as I can. I was
Hmm.
watching short films that he made when he was younger. And then I remember like Eagle versus Shark when that came out in theaters, 2007. I remember watching
Yeah.
that one back then. So it's my like indie dry humor, deadpan sensibilities, my love for humor in these movies. The Thors that take themselves too seriously, I don't love, and I also don't. I've I'm not predisposed to enjoy God movies. So like Egyptian gods and X-Men, when that's the bad guy, I
Hmm.
don't enjoy that. Or Moon Knight, didn't love that aspect. Movies where there's Roman or Greek gods as main characters, it's not really something that it's, for whatever reason, it feels a little unreal or unbelievable or almost silly.
Hmm.
And so them taking the piss a little bit and Taika Waititi doing his thing, I enjoy that. I think the more Taika Waititi, the more I would enjoy these movies. As far as lore goes, I actually can't speak to that. That's something that you, being more familiar with the comics and the different roads they could have taken and character choices they could have taken, you might be. I'm going to ask you to speak on that more.
Sure.
But first, I love Taika Waititi's whole thing, and what we do in the shadows to me is comedy gold. Jojo Rabbit was one of my favorite movies that year, and I think I would have put it as like my choice for best picture, at least top few
Hmm.
options. Um, in general, I want more Taika all the time. This one, I noted that it was more comedy, but I also, to me, it was darker too at points. And what's interesting, what Taika Waititi can do, which very front of the screen in Jojo Rabbit, is take something that's
Hmm.
dark and put it next to something that's funny. And
Yeah.
without, and that dry comedy is good for that. Taika Waititi is really good at that. In this movie, you have the opening scene. I was expecting it to be more silly, fun times, Ragnarok stuff. And the opening scene, I actually maybe I shouldn't say it.
Yeah. We're
Um,
not in spoiler territory yet.
I,
Yeah.
I won't do spoilers, but basically, someone's going through a really difficult time, and
Yeah.
yeah, and that's like 5 minutes. I'm just sitting there like, to me, honestly, there were times in this movie where it wasn't necessarily funny enough, but they did combine those well, and I'm glad that he was given that opportunity. I am someone who, when tragedy strikes, I look for gallows humor and I look for
Hmm.
comic relief. So I like that they handled the seriousness, some serious moments of this movie, balancing it out with humor. There's maybe a few things that felt a little too silly. It didn't feel as funny as Ragnarok. Definitely wasn't as psychedelic as Ragnarok, which I loved about
Hmm.
Ragnarok. This one, there was the color schemes at times were just black and white, kind of, just because of what planet they were on. And um, overall, the action was pretty solid. Um, to mainly to respond to your main issue with it, I can't speak to the lore, but love the Taika Waititi of it all. I think it was a lot better than some recent Marvel entries, which is an ongoing discussion. You're not wrong that if Marvel keeps getting mixed reviews and thumbs downs, at some point, like Star Wars had that issue. They were going to keep pumping out
Yeah.
Star Wars movies, and they had to fully backpedal that
Hmm.
plan. If this happens now, one more time, two more times, who knows? I'm looking at their upcoming slate, and hopefully, if they screw these up, it'll be really bad. It'll be like put, halt the assembly line. But upcoming ones I'm looking at are um, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. You can't
Hmm.
fuck that up. If you do, fire everyone. Ant-Man and the Wasp, which lighthearted. A lot of people don't like the Ant-Mans. I love them. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, The Marvels, and Fantastic Four. And in theory, that could be 4 or 5 home runs in a row. That
Hmm.
those are properties that are maybe not Ant-Man. It depends on. I like the Ant-Mans, but those lend themselves to being among the favorite franchises under the MCU,
Yeah.
and they could get that cachet back. And especially if we start to see things start to intertwine again, which we were seeing with the original phases, maybe we start to see that, and that might mean good things. And if you have a couple of those becoming big hits, people will say, "Oh, I'm glad I watched Love and Thunder, even though I was kind of middling. Now I appreciate this moment in this other movie way more." If that happens, this could all be worth it. As of right now, I don't disagree. Whoever's counting checks over at Marvel might say like, "Hey guys, maybe we should." I don't know. But yeah, those are my overall thoughts. I think I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd, but I'm a generous reviewer. It's probably more like a 3.5, a 3 for most people, but I thought they did a good. I'm pretty sure I gave Ragnarok 4.5 or 5. To me, it was not that good, but it was my second favorite Thor movie, and
Hmm.
it's not going to be a top 5 MCU movie, but it definitely is in the top half. Whereas a few of the recent entries have been bottom half or like real, like bottom of the barrel stuff. So that's my thoughts overall. If someone's asking if they should see it, unless you're anti MCU or anti Thor, like it was a fun time. Any old person who can walk in that theater and enjoy themselves. It was definitely entertaining. Is it must watch if you're not trying to watch all the MCU movies? If you're not a fan of these, if you're not a fan of Taika Waititi, then maybe not. I'm not sure I would tell someone who's just kind of a casual movie goer like, yeah, you got to see Thor. But if you're into any of that stuff, which so many people are, a lot of people are still. I'm watching every MCU movie when it comes out. Appointment viewing. I'm in that camp. Then I think you won't be fully disappointed, but I don't know. It's definitely possible. I am
Yeah.
biased to liking this movie.
Yeah, and which is perfectly fine. And to be honest, I thought you would, because in our every time we have our discussions about like the Marvel movies, DC movies, or what have you, you are not familiar with like the origins. You're not familiar with the comics and all that, and that's why we do have a lot of conversation because you're asking questions, and I'm trying to explain in deeper details and all that. And I think we've gotten to the point with the Marvel movies where they could take some liberty, right, and maybe just go off script, which we've seen happen to some of the characters and some of the choices throughout the MCU run and all that. And they did that here as well, so no big surprise there. But I think when it comes to Thor, because in the comics he's not a major goofball. He is somewhat serious and all that. He finds himself in a lot of serious situations. But sometimes that may not transfer well on the big screen and maybe not really go well with audiences because the Kenneth Branagh Thor I thought was brilliantly done, but it was trying so hard to be serious and trying a little bit too much to be Shakespearean in a way. And I felt like that threw a lot of people off. Number two was almost the same thing, right? And plus you add in a very poor villain or what have you like that, and that no one really cared about at the end. And you have that sidekick in Darcy who takes up maybe way too much screen time for some people. Like after watching WandaVision, I thought her comedy was a little bit better there. And, I think I've gotten used to it at that point where it doesn't bother me that much anymore. But I think, Thor 2 was so early on that we weren't familiar with all that yet, so I think it did throw some people off. But then when Ragnarok came out, I was like, wow, this is a breath of fresh air for the Thor franchise. Because now knowing how funny, Chris Hemsworth is, and knowing how that can really play well within the MCU, especially when he interacts with a lot of the Marvel characters, I don't mind seeing that a little bit more. I don't mind having that good balance and mix. But that's the key, having a mix and a balance, and I think this one just decides to just go way off on that side of the spectrum. And I know when you watch movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, you do get that a lot. But, James Gunn's humor is a little different from Taika Waititi's humor, right? So I do feel like it fits a movie like that for me personally. And I do like Taika a lot. I mean, Jojo Rabbit is definitely a masterpiece in my mind. And, and again, like what you said, very tough subject matter and very, serious dramatic scenes. And he pays good enough attention to that, but also mixing in that kind of dry sense of humor, the good comedic timing, even the way he portrays certain characters. Like they may not be purposely funny, but they just are, right? And I think he does a really good job at that stuff. Here, I just felt like everyone was trying to be funny. I felt like, you had Gorr, the main villain in this movie, trying to be funny and cute. You had Jane trying to be funny and cute. You had, of course, Thor trying to be funny and cute. And, it's just like every character you met was trying to be funny and cute. And I feel like that's not necessary, at least for me. Right. But I do think that, like yourself, a lot of people who are maybe not that huge die-hard comic book fan, but still loves the MCU, they're gonna probably really enjoy this movie, and that's why I do think this movie will still make a lot of money. That, you know, Marvel, even though the reviews or the sentiments are mixed, if it's making money, they don't care, right? So they're like, all right, this is still working, let's go. All right, next one. The minute it starts not making money, that's when, all right, maybe it's time to kind of flip the script a little bit like that. So I mean, again, very curious about all of you who are watching and listening. You know, Thor, Love and Thunder. What are your thoughts about where Thor is now? Kind of like the change in the character, because there is a big change in the character. If you watched all the movies, he is now like that, kind of like that really goofy, funny guy. And when he never really truly 100% started that way, right? So, you know, what are your thoughts on Ragnarok, and how did that translate to the new movie? Did you enjoy the movie? Is this something that you haven't seen yet, but you're on the fence on, or you haven't fully, you know, whatever the case, or you just said, nope, I'm done with Marvel. That's about it. You know, the TV shows are enough, or whatever, you know, all that stuff like that. Hot take. I do think this probably would have been better as a limited TV series.
He said it.
Yeah.
He said it.
I said it. Yeah. Just because, again, if you want to take the time to make it funny and quirky and all that, give us more time with the characters then, you know, and all that, because I didn't feel like for some, we didn't really get enough, you know, so the investment in whatever character choices and all that stuff like that is not always there for me.
Just to clarify, you don't like humor or laughing. Is that
no? That is so not true. That is so not true.
You said joy is bad, laughing is bad.
No.
Someone who laughs, then you're miserable. Is that
no?
I'm not sure if a YouTube video is the best place to have that conversation with someone. Maybe. Are you okay? Why do you hate laughter, Rene? I need to know why.
All right.
Why is laughter bad?
All right, if we're gonna be serious right now for a minute, you know, okay, no fooling around. You know, I was always told that laughing is not good in the household, so I had to keep all my emotions in check when I was watching Looney Tunes and Disney cartoons.
Bale.
And what happened? Where am I?
No, I don't. No, I'm not ready for this conversation. Please, no, please go back to talking about this. Oh goodness, seriously, I almost always want things to be funnier than not funny. Is your issue, because I think you're right. They said, oh, Chris Hemsworth actually is really good at that kind of humor. Whatever that is, he's amazing at it. It's a good business decision. Instead of just going like the serious Thor movies, I think they're more popular when you have humor involved.
Sure.
I also like laughing. Is it because it's like goes against the original character? Like, is it that it wasn't actually funny, but they were trying to be funny? That's different to me than there was too much comedy. What's the issue?
Yeah, no, I think it, you know, again, I appreciate the Marvel humor. Marvel has always had humor in their movies, you know, and if timed properly, I think those things really land for me. You know, like I'll never forget like one of the Avengers movies where, you know, Iron Man is flying around and, you know, they're trying to attack this this base or whatever, and Tony Stark is just like, oh shit, and then you just hear Captain America say language, you know, like that kind of stuff. Like really, I was like, oh, because I wasn't expecting it at that moment. Like, oh, that's really funny. Now, when you have jokes and quirky, witty comments, one after the other for like 10 minutes, then it's no longer like a surprise. It's no longer like a thing. It's like, oh my God, we're still joking. We're in jokey mode right now, and it's not stopping it. It's like, oh, okay, and it's everybody. You know, like I understand. Like when you're in a group, and let's say there are 5 of you, not all 5 people are funny, right? Usually you'll have 3, you know, maybe half, you know, and they're the ones that like keep everyone laughing and all that. For some reason in this movie, everyone was the funny person or trying to be, and not all the jokes landed for me. You know, I did feel my eyes roll to the back of my head several times. You know, I kind of just did one of these. And honestly, and we could talk about this real quick too, as far as theater reactions are concerned. After the serious moment that started the movie, then when you start fully kicking into Thor mode, No one laughed for the first 25 minutes.
Wow.
You know, which I found shocking because I thought it was just me. I'm like, I'm not laughing here at all. The guy next to me kept snickering and doing one of those like that left and right. But then fast forward to another 15, 20 more minutes, then people started to laugh at certain things and all that. So I don't know if people were ready, if people were just waking up, or maybe it just genuinely they didn't find a lot of that stuff funny, right? So it's a type of humor.
Taika Waititi is building tension, or something that he can be good is like trying to kind of like the Judd Apatow thing, which it's
sure.
I wouldn't be surprised if Taika Waititi took some cues of like, okay, do a serious, vulnerable, emotional thing, more of his indie movies than this stuff,
right?
And then throw it to comedy. And if they were trying to build it up that way, I can't imagine you wanted a comedy something that was this comedic to have 30 minutes of no laughter. And before we go into spoilers, I want to ask what your theater experience was like. Mine was way emptier than I expected. It was 4:30 p.m., so people weren't off work yet. And I'm in Oklahoma right now, so it's not usually going to be as full, but normally opening day of a Marvel, maybe there's so many screenings. Like, this isn't a COVID scared crowd. Like, they're going to go to, I've been to movies here that have been full since almost as early as people were going to the theaters. So I'm not sure what the deal was. Maybe there's so many screenings. There was ones at like 2, 3, 4 or something. It started early. It was actually, that might be the earliest I've seen a Thursday movie release
for sure.
of time of day. So maybe that's part of it. If you had kids, you went to the one right before me. And if you were trying to be the first person to see it, take off work, maybe you're doing that one. I don't know. But there's maybe a third full of the theater, and there wasn't a lot of reaction. I laughed more because whatever that deadpan dry thing, that is my thing. I have a loud laugh in a theater. There were a bunch of times I laughed more at this one than most MCU movies.
Even more than Ragnarok?
No, I'm going to say Ragnarok is probably a top all time, but it's up there for sure. It's to me, if you're going for jokes per minute, this is going to be up there right near the top as much as any of them.
For sure. Yeah.
And I like this sense of humor so much. I had multiple laugh out loud, like guffaw moments, maybe 10, 12, 15. And there was at least a good half of those where there a handful of people throughout the theater were laughing. Something else about having a loud laugh in a small theater is that it makes other people laugh sometimes. And either they're like, why is your laugh so loud? Or they're making fun of it. But in this case, there's times where you don't laugh until someone else kind of gives you that, like, oh, that started the laughter, like an applause. Every now and then, people are just waiting for one person to applaud, kind of thing. So maybe that was part of it. And if I wasn't there, maybe nobody's laughing because it was usually there's like a small delay. But mostly empty theater, good amount of laughter for based on any movie standards. As far as the overall feeling, there was enough of that like sadness, darkness. I don't know how compelling the plot itself was. I don't know how involved everyone was in the MCU. It wasn't the kind where like the MCU logo comes on and everyone starts clapping. I've been in those theaters. That's really fun. Definitely was not that situation. So what was your theater like?
Yeah, so I saw it around the same time you did, East Coast time, 4 p.m. East Coast time. And the theater I go to is in a pretty family residential heavy type of neighborhood. So my theater was, and it's not an IMAX theater, it was just a regular digital screening. It was like maybe 70% capacity in my theater.
Okay.
But it's a mixed crowd. So there were some people like me who are, familiar with the comic books and all that stuff like that. I could tell just based on the conversations I heard after the movie was done. Okay. A lot of kids, like family and children. So those are the ones that ended up clapping at the end of the movie. They loved it. They ate it up 100%. Yeah. And when the funny bits happened, like I said in the beginning, no one was laughing. Then as people were getting, I guess, comfortable or whatever, or they knew what the expectations were, or maybe just the jokes and the humor became funnier, then I started hearing more laugh out loud moments from people and people laughing and everything. But like I said, the kids, and maybe this is the direction we're going. I don't know. The younger generation, the younger crowd loved it. They were the ones that were clapping at the end of the movie. And then when the post-credit scenes would pop up, and again, we'll get into that in the spoiler territory, they were like, shh, go, it's starting. Like they were so excited. Yeah.
Wow.
So, again, this is, the Disney machine. This is Marvel. Maybe they know this is what they need to attract now, because there is a switch in generations, right? Because the MCU have been around for what? We're getting close to maybe 15 years now or something like that. I could be a little off, but maybe, because I think, like, what was it? 2008 or 2002 was Iron Man, which I forget which year it is.
It would be 08. It's something.
08, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, Iron Man is 2008. Yeah,
2008.
So we're
Okay.
at 14 to 15 years in that range.
Yeah. So maybe, the people like me, maybe we're getting too old for this stuff. So now where's the focus on how they're going to bring in the new crowd, right? Miss Marvel's on Disney Plus right now, and the younger generation's loving that series, right? It's it's catered for that audience.
The Hawkeye show was catered to that audience for sure.
Yeah, the introduction of Kate Bishop, yeah.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
And it's also possible that the older comic book heads who were with them for so long and so excited about it, how many times do you hear someone go, screw this, they made this choice with this character, I'm a comic book person, I'm not going to mess with them anymore. And they'll still probably give them the money, but it's almost like they said, hey, if we want to really get that $1 billion again, should we keep curtailing to the base, or should we just go for the general audience and the younger audience? And do we want to keep this going for 10, 20 more years, or like, or what's our timeline for bringing those younger fans? That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. There's a few decisions they've made that would make me think you might be onto something, that we might see more of that. And maybe Spider-Man being such a hit with younger folks and Tom Holland being such a fit, maybe they say, oh, that's making the most money out of these recently. Let's go with that model. Okay. Good call.
Yeah. And there is definitely that switch within the MCU where the characters are going to start becoming younger, because obviously there's no more Tony Stark, there's no more Captain America, and those who are left are definitely getting older, right? So they started retiring other characters or putting them so far in the background that they're not really like the everyday people anymore and all that you'll start seeing in these movies. So they're definitely starting to introduce the younger crowd. And there is such a thing as the Young Avengers in the comic books. And these are a lot of the characters that we're recently being introduced to now. So if that is your new Avengers focus team that they're going to be moving forward to, we are slowly getting introduced to a lot of those people right now. There is something that happens at the end of this movie that might lead into that eventually too. So with that being said, that could be like a good segue to just start going into spoiler territory. But for the most part, my theater, I think, is going to get busier tonight, because as mine showing was getting let out, I saw more people coming to the movie. So I won't be surprised if this definitely does well over the weekend, because we are in the summer. Our families are out, kids are off of school. So, and I think the sentiment of comfort going to theaters nowadays is a little loosened. So I feel like more people are willing to go back little by little. So I'm pretty sure it's going to do well. It'll be interesting to see for sure. Hey guys and gals, looking for the latest and greatest in collectibles and pop culture merchandise? Well, have I got the perfect destination for all of you. For example, get yourself an electronic prop replica of Mjolnir as seen in the movie, along with other Thor collectibles. Follow the link in the description below at Entertainment Earth. Entertainment Earth is the premier place online for the latest and greatest toys, the most exciting action figures, and the coolest gifts and collectibles pop culture has to offer. From television, movies, sports, collectibles, comics, internet memes, and every fandom in between. They drop new products daily and curate their selection so you don't miss out. Whether you're looking for something stellar from a galaxy far, far away with Star Wars, or from the streets of Gotham City with DC Comics, they've got surprises for everyone. Get access to exclusive releases and limited run pre-orders. You can even reserve hard to find items before they arrive. From Funko to Hasbro, all your favorite vendors are represented in their robust catalog of cool collectibles. They are pleased to offer risk-free shopping with their industry-leading mint condition guarantee and hassle-free 90-day returns. Entertainment Earth has been making pop culture fans happy for 25 years now and have no signs of slowing down. What's great is that for US shoppers, they're currently offering free shipping for any orders placed above $49. Not in the US? Don't worry. Entertainment Earth ships globally. Visit the special link in the description of this episode to take advantage of this offer and buy yourself or a loved one something really cool. Entertainment Earth, so many toys, so much fun. But yeah, if you haven't seen the movie yet and you don't want anything ruined for you, this is your last warning, because we are going to start opening the floodgates and we will have no more filter. Not that we ever do, but as far as when it comes to the movie Thor Love and Thunder itself. If you don't care about spoilers and you want to continue watching and listening, then that's all on you. So we are...
As I can, I'm going to say that Chewbacca dies. So
oh,
just turn
man.
it off right now if you don't want to hear stuff like that.
We didn't give him enough time for that. You can't just say that, Come on. And then soon after that, Han dies too.
The crossover Star Wars. I didn't expect this to be a Star Wars. Oh yeah, sorry, no spoilers. We'll get into all the Star Wars crossover stuff in a minute.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. Grogu is now part of the dark side. So, but with that being said, Thor Love and Thunder, spoiler talk. I mean, I'm sure you have your questions, right? And all that. But first, I'm going to just lay out as far as like some of the characters that we were introduced to. All right. So, as if you didn't know already by the trailers, we get introduced finally to the female Thor. She does go by several monikers when she was first introduced. Lady Thor. Of course, people still call her Jane Foster like that.
Jodie Foster.
Jodie Foster. How long are they going to keep that joke running? Because that was like a running gag in the movie where Korg kept forgetting her real name and would like mix it up with like, Jodie Foster, Jane Fonda. So it just kept happening, so I'm glad you got a kick out of it, because after a while I was just like, all right, enough.
I applaud each time. It got me. Okay, so her character, this is her big movie.
Yeah, so, and she had a very, and I think still does have a run in the comics, right? So her own series is The Mighty Thor, so which she finally refers to herself as she's trying to look for a catchphrase when she goes into battle. So we get introduced to her, and the way that it's described in the movie is exactly the same way as it is in the comics. Jane Foster has cancer. She's kind of desperate, and she kind of relies heavily on, the powers of, Mjolnir and all that stuff like that to try to help her bring her back and to health and all that. So they do cover that, I think, in my opinion, pretty well in the movie. My only concern is that I think she died off way too soon. I would have loved maybe to see one more movie with her as the Mighty Thor, just to get more of that. Do you think it's a Natalie
Portman request? Do you think it's Natalie Portman being like, I'm out, fuck this? Because otherwise, if you're Marvel, you might give her own movie.
Yeah.
Do another
or
one of
series or something. Yeah.
Female. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Female fronted.
Yeah.
This is a great character for that. It's a beloved franchise already with the Thor of it all. That's an easy sell, in my opinion. And I wouldn't be surprised if Natalie Portman, like some other serious actors, have been like, please kill me.
Yeah, I mean, she was always hesitant to come back. Like, I think after she did Thor 2, she said she never wanted to come back because she was, for those of you who don't know, Patty Jenkins was supposed to direct Thor 2. And then because of creative differences, Patty Jenkins left the project. She wasn't let go. She left on her own accord. Natalie Portman got upset because she really wanted to work with Patty and almost refused to do the movie, and then finally agreed to do the movie, but under the condition that she was not going to come back, and all that. Now, yeah. So, and again, there may be a lot who don't know that. So that's basically what happened. So that's why we never really saw her. Maybe we'll see like clips of her and all that stuff, but she never really came back and filmed anything until one of the Avengers movies where I heard she came back on set for like, I don't know, 10 minutes to film something.
There's the one in, I guess it's in game. They're doing the time travel and they go and see her. That might be the one.
Yeah. And I think she did it as a favor, not thinking that the character was really going to come back. But then when Taika approached her to come back for Thor, she wants to work with Taika. So she agreed to finally come back. And I guess she really liked the storyline from what I heard on, I don't know, who knows. But yeah, if it is one of those conditions where she's like, I'll come back for this one thing, and then maybe sparingly will come back, from time to time, then I could see why they made the character choice that they did. At the end of the movie, one of the post-credit scenes, and we'll talk more about that stuff, we do see that she's still around somehow, right? So she could come back and pop up whatever they need her, and whatever the case is. But I was a little bit disappointed that we could not get more of her as Mighty Thor in future iterations anytime soon, right? What was your feeling about the Mighty Thor storyline there?
I was with it. I love Natalie Portman as a serious actress.
Yeah.
I love Natalie Portman in Black Swan. I love Natalie Portman in Jackie. Yeah. Those are my kind of movies.
Yep.
Natalie Portman, what confused me is I couldn't tell, was she supposed to be Padme as Mighty Thor or Amidala playing, or I understand the timeline between this crossover that we've been talking about.
Well, yeah, it's multiverse. Yeah, you have to think of multiverse. So we don't know. It could be another version of her, right?
Think about it.
I mean, the only thing that she didn't do is I didn't see her mouth off other people's lines while they're talking. So
if Doctor Strange taught us anything, it's that when you dream something, it's a real thing in another multiverse. Yes. And so I would be shocked if young Spider-Man isn't watching the Star Wars movies and having those Star Wars dreams the way we all did.
Sure.
Just saying. That opens up a portal.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, my genuine question, because I can kind of comprehend some basics. I'm going to play even dumber than I am.
Yeah.
She's dead and in Valhalla at the end. And you're saying she's still kind of around. Has anyone in comic lore, anything that to your knowledge, come back from Valhalla? And does her being buddies with Heimdall, and he's like, hey, welcome, come, you're in Valhalla now. He's the portal guy from before, right? Like, maybe that's a good friend to have if you do want to go back for a one-day. I don't know how any of this works in the science of it, because Valhalla isn't real. Right. If you have any kids
wait, it's not?
Turn this off. Yeah, I don't want to spoil this, but Santa Claus is real, Valhalla is not. No, so can you kind of talk on that at all? If you're talking about the possibility she could come back for a little thing, could she? Is it a thing?
So the way that Valhalla is kind of handled in the comics, it's definitely its own separate universe, its own separate part, dimension, whatever you call it, like that. So if we do see her,
it is like a heaven.
Yes,
kind of place.
yes. They are dead, and they're in this like afterlife, after plane, eternal plane, whatever you want to call it, right?
Are they physical or are they souls? Do we know? I guess we're getting real spiritual.
You're getting way too,
okay.
You're getting way, I think a lot of that stuff is not necessary in the comic book realm because you just know they're there. So we could possibly see adventures happening there, or another universe or dimension interfering with that place, and hijinks ensue or something like that. Or we could come across this thing where maybe someone can wish someone back to life, right? And again, we saw that happen in the movie, but there could be like another thing. It doesn't necessarily have to deal with eternity. It could be an object, or whatever the case is. Doctor Strange could decide to do something crazy again and whatever, help somebody out. So to answer your question, to long story short and all, she is in the afterlife. Everyone there is considered to be dead in the real realm of where the MCU is, but they still have a life there. So, like I said, it is a plane of existence that maybe potentially someone can crack into, like that.
Jane and Heimdall sitting in a tree. K-I-S. I don't
know about all that. But
well, I mean,
she loves Thor. She said so at the end of the movie. She said, "I love you."
She also said, "Never leave me," and now she's in Valhalla, and anything goes when you're in Valhalla. I'm just saying, it's like vacation rules. You get a hall pass when it comes
different
to
zip code.
A Heimdall pass. Zip code. Yep. Just saying. So, okay, that answers that. Thank you for helping explain. I think that's some pretty basic, like,
Yeah.
she's dead, right? We
Yeah.
also, I'm just going to go and say this, we don't know what the bad guy's wish was. We don't know what Christian Bale's. We think it was to bring back the daughter.
Right.
Maybe it was bring back the daughter and fuck with Thor and be like, in 5 days, bring back Jane. We don't know. Once you can do anything in this super magical realm where you find a portal at the center of the universe, that's one reason why I don't like the gods movies as much, is because,
Yeah.
like, Ant-Man and the Wasp, like, the science is dumb, but at least there's something going on there. Here, it's like you could ask for anything. So what if you
Right.
ask for a million wishes, right? Does the whole thing fall in on it? What if, here's what I'm thinking, what I would have done, with my wish, if I was I would have wished for Spider-Ham to come back into that realm where is it Peter Porker's Spider-Ham?
Peter Porker, yeah.
Yeah, and also I got to refute this right here, right now. We're settling some beef. Renee, you said I'm not a comic book guy. If you recall, for my birthday a few years ago, you got me the Spider-Ham comics, and I read those. I'm real deep and well versed on the Spider-Ham lore because I think that's the funniest thing ever. I laugh so hard at Into the Spider-Verse every time, every single moment Spider-Ham's on the screen. It's so good. So that's one wish I would do. Another wish would be like they could have brought Black Widow back in theory. Like they could have brought back Iron Man. Like at this point, anything could happen. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's almost like MCU got their one wish, but instead they chose to bring back a little girl that we just met. Dumb. I hope that we get to go back to this portal at some point. I don't know how that works, but now that we have the multiverse and genie wish portal things, you can do anything in this universe. That's super fun, where there's like almost no stakes. And then dead Doctor Strange gets to fight dead Doctor Strange recently. Like we're just doing all types of stuff. It's cool. This is where they start to lose me, even though I'm entertained and enjoying it. I'm going like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. And then okay. We have Captain America is now Captain England or whatever the heck that character's name is. You know what I'm saying. I'm just
Captain
griping
Britain.
right now. Is that really what it is? And then John Krasinski shows up, and he's a smart guy who can't think one step ahead.
Whoa.
Right, now I'm just
now you're and that's spoilers for a different movie. So you can't assume that someone watched Doctor Strange and then saw this movie or whatever the case is. But you're definitely going off in a rant.
Rain Man, starring Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman. Okay, no, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Macaulay Culkin dies in my girl. Go ahead. Sorry.
Rosebud is his sled. So, I'm glad you brought up Gorr. So Gorr the God Butcher is by Christian Bale. So if you couldn't figure out in the trailer, basically you have this guy who was wronged by the gods, right? He comes across this mythical sword that can kill gods. Now he avenged the rest of his life, to kill off all the gods because, his gods failed him. He was starving. He lost his daughter because of that, and everything in cases, right?
For his character's defense, his gods not only like they were laughing at him and mocking him.
Oh yeah.
He lost his mind, and honestly, the god had just failed him. That's one thing, but when you're literally like he got pushed to the damn brink, right? Laughing at his dead daughter situation.
Yeah, he was getting mocked, and basically his god was just like, well, we don't owe you anything. You do what you do because you're supposed to, but don't expect anything in return, right? No rewards or anything like that. So he vows the rest of his existence to get rid of all the gods because of all of that stuff. Obviously Thor catches wind of this, and Thor tries to stop him, and they have this big battle at the end because he realized that an easier way to get rid of all the gods, instead of just going off and trying to slash their throats every chance he gets, he can approach the god of eternity. And once you get there, you are granted one wish. And we all assume that his wish was to get rid of all the gods, right?
We assume time. Cut out the middleman. Yeah, just go. Okay, yeah. I'm going to traverse all of the multiverse, universe, world, God, heaven, realms.
Yeah, because we only had 2 hours too. Yeah, so we can't show him unless they had like this God killing mishmash, or kind of like
What is it
like a
in Star Wars
montage,
Order 43 or whatever, where
or the Order 66.
thank you, Order 66.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just do. I would love it. Just a mini series of just God, death,
Right.
God, death, God, death, God, death, God, death. And then Christian Bale becomes a One Punch Man guy who's just kind of like, here we go again. I got to wake up, eat my cereal, and
Yep.
go kill a
Exactly.
god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that would have been actually really hilarious if they did like an 80s style
With-
montage, you
It
know?
kind of looks like the One Punch Man with the bald head and everything.
Right,
Yeah, just give him a
right.
silly cape. Okay.
Yeah, it would be really cool, like the God killing montage and everything. But yeah, so, but when he gets to the end, you know, the running theme, I think, in this movie, because, you know, Thor is having himself a crisis, an identity crisis, a midlife crisis, however you want it. He doesn't feel loved or feel the feeling of love. But then he realizes once he sees Jane again that, you know, this is the one thing missing in his life. It's what's keeping him whole. And there's like a promotion of love. Like, you must love, and love will solve everything, which it possibly could. So, as Jane is dying there at the hands of Thor, Christian Bale, from what it appears, wishes his daughter to come back. And who's going to take care of her? Because, you know, Gorr is dying too. Oh, let's just have Thor take care of her and all that. So Thor becomes her Uncle Thor, as she refers to him as. And so that's basically what happened, right? So as far as the character of Gorr, I did like how they kind of portrayed him in this movie. However, my gripe, and it goes back to my gripe from before, is that he also tries to be funny. You know, there's this moment where he captured all the kids from Asgard, right? And now, you know, New Asgard is exactly how you saw it last. I think it looks like Iceland, but I think it's Sweden or something like that, or Norway, one of those countries. And it's actually on Earth. It's not.
I'd like to apologize to all of our Norwegian listeners right now. Obviously, it's nothing like Iceland, right? I don't know, actually. Denmark. Okay, sorry. Digging a hole.
No, it's fine. No, but basically, yeah, it's on Earth, right? So they are living like humans, but they are all godlike characters. But yet they've turned Asgard now into a Disney resort, so to speak, right? Which is funny, but at the same time, like, really? Okay,
there's a little bit of commentary there on.
Sure,
it might be Taika Waititi's indie sensibilities, being
sure.
like, oh yeah, taking something beautiful and great and amazing, and then just Disneyfying it.
Disneyfying it.
Disney, and Disney goes, yeah, you can make us money by doing that. That's fine with me.
Right. Yeah. Now they can go to Avengers Campus there at Disneyland and hang out with, you know, your characters that you are portraying in this movie. So Gorr, as far as a character, is, you know, okay, but when I say he was trying to be so funny, when he was kind of talking to the kids as they were captured, and he's trying to be like the funny guy, you know, it's like, oh, you stories? I have a story for you, and like all this kind of stuff like that, and it was just so bad for me.
You didn't view it as him trying to be funny. I viewed it as him trying to be messed up and torture and scare these kids, like psychologically scar them. He's like so mad at the gods and everything. I'm not being silly.
No,
I don't think
that's fine. Yeah,
trying to be funny. Maybe he's so messed up that's his idea of funny.
Yeah,
I literally thought he knew he was scaring the heck out of these kids with his little puppet show, chopping off the head of a little creature thing. Like, I did not view that as him in good faith trying to be funny. I thought it was a very bad faith mess with these kids effort. And there's kind of something there with like with Taika Waititi and dealing with dark subject matter, and you could make some statement there of trying to make something funny that's actually pretty sinister. I only had a sinister reading of that moment. I don't know.
I'm sure that was the intention of the character. I think the way it came across the screen for me personally was that they were trying to make him kind of funny. You know, kind of like I mean, don't get me wrong, that's probably one of the few times I did laugh, you know, in the movie. And I don't want it to come across as if I didn't laugh a lot. It's just like, maybe I did find that funny. Other times I laughed because it was so stupid or silly. I couldn't believe that they were doing it or saying something, whatever the case is. Yeah, the goats, the screaming goats. Those two characters are actually from the comics, so those do exist. And they're fan favorites, actually. So I'm sure the comic book the Thor fans could not wait to see those two on the big screen. So, and they were funny. They were really funny just to hear them just screaming in the background or right before they crash through the window or everything like that. It's just like or they land somewhere and then you just hear them
So good. They did that really well. It was kind of repetitious, but at some point it became like the SNL or Tim and Eric style comedy, where by repeating it so many times, it became even more ridiculous. The blue dudes who gave them the goats were maybe the funniest characters in the whole thing to me.
Yeah.
That to me was comedy gold. The way that Taika Waititi's character was in Ragnarok, now we're kind of used to that humor and it was funny.
Yeah.
And his character didn't have as many good lines. That character, I don't even know the dude's name, but the blue dudes who gave him the goats were so funny every time they opened their mouths to me.
Yeah, no, they were. And it was actually a good recovery because, again, this happens like in the beginning of the movie, but after we just saw this really devastating thing. Well, basically the Gorr, kind of the introduction to Gorr and kind of the background, they show him in the desert, losing his daughter, and then into the mockery of his god and everything like that. So that whole thing was very serious. And then you jump into current Thor situation. He's hanging out with the Guardians of the Galaxy. They're on this planet. There's a war between the aliens of that planet and a different set of aliens. And Thor comes to save the day and everything. And that race was pretty hilarious when they were on screen. They had the minions who would just like kind of hop up and down as they're marching along with their king and everything like that. And the king is very sarcastic. As Thor's going to town, they're just like, please no, not the building or anything like that. And and it just becomes this joke at the end where it's like, we're not talking about the building. We're not talking about the building right now. It's too hard. That stuff was really funny. The Thor fighting in that was way over the top for me. And again, this is part of the comedy that just didn't work. When he did the Van Damme split to try to stop the two vehicles, I rolled my eyes hard on that one, like really hard on that one, and that did not work for me one bit. But and then he had his he was monologuing because you have Korg that's like retelling the story of Thor and all that, and we see another funny thing I laughed at was seeing baby Thor in the little baby Bjorn as they're going into battle. I thought that was pretty funny. That was pretty hilarious. And very adorable. And then you get like flashbacks of all like the Thor stuff that happened throughout the movies and everything like that. So Gorr itself, I mean, for me, for the most part, worked okay. The funny bits just didn't work at all for me, but definitely not a strong villain, I think. I think a lot of diehard fans were expecting more, or going to be expecting more from this villain, because if you compare
what wasn't strong about it? You mean his actual physical strength, the acting performance, just him compared to other villains? What do you mean not strong?
Just as far as like importance, in my opinion. Like I just don't think in the lore
or in this movie.
In the movie, yeah. Like I think, like the way from what I've heard, and again, I'm not 100% familiar with all of the comics and everything, but he was definitely a much more menacing villain in the comic books. And I felt, unfortunately, just like what the MCU has an issue when it comes to their villains, where they could be kind of one-sided or very short-sighted. They're a one and done thing all the time for the most part, and I think for someone like this, I think from what I've heard, this villain is not a one and done type of villain. Like this is a villain that actually, tortures, and kind of like the existence of himself is a burden to Thor and all that, so
when I met him, I thought he might be a new Thanos-y type of like, this dude could be coming back for a while. Maybe
I think a lot of people thought
the kind of dude who's recurring. Yeah. And I have no lore knowledge at all. It was like, oh, this is a god killer. He's going to be going. He's got a whole mission. Yeah. I liked the backstory. It maybe would have been more developed. I don't know. But yeah, that actually rings true. And all I have knowledge of for this character is today's movie.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people felt that way. They felt like this was going to be like a really serious villain. But unfortunately, it's a one and done thing. the day was quote unquote saved at the end, and now Thor is living with Love, the little daughter. That's the name of the little thing. Who is, I think she's going to be hilarious if this character continues, or we're going to see more of this character, which I'm sure we are. But the fact that she has a mixture of like Thor's type of personality, but also has the powers of eternity at her fingertips, that can lead to a lot of mischief, and I'm sure that's going to be a lot of funny. And the actress is the real life daughter of Chris Hemsworth and his wife.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I read that right before we started recording this. I'm like, oh, look at that. Cute. Yeah, so it must have been so nice for Chris to be acting with his daughter there. So I think that's adorable. I don't know what else is there to talk about this movie that you probably want to get into. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, there's the great thing about this movie is that it wasn't long. It was like 2 hours, which is refreshing, especially compared to some of the more recent Marvel movies. I felt like it was a perfect timing for it. I didn't feel like it dragged. I didn't feel like, and I felt like I had enough by the end of the movie, at least for me. I felt like, all right, good to go. All right, what are the post-credit scenes? All right, now I can go. I was somewhat, like I said, I was entertained, but we did see a lot happen in this movie. What were some of your favorite moments, and what were probably some of your least favorite moments?
I feel like it's on the comedy of it all. I won't rehash it, but
yeah,
the goats doing their dang thing, the blue guys doing their dang thing. Christian Bale's acting, as someone who really likes a great acting performance, he's one of our best and kind of underrated in that he just always does such a great job. He's in a lot of movies that aren't super duper popular, but he's good at transforming his body. I don't know to what degree he did that for this one. It's almost like people take him for granted, and every time he's on screen, and there was even a trailer before this movie of his next David O. Russell movie. I'm excited about that one now.
I am too.
That was a good tie-in for people like me who, anytime Christian Bale is on screen, I get it. I am watching a masterclass in acting, and this was no exception. Even though it was one of his sillier roles, he often doesn't do, after Dark Knight stuff, he is kind of shied away from these types of movies. He did a great job, in my opinion. I really enjoyed it. So that might be one of my biggest takeaways, other than just all the Taika Waititi comedy of it. Also, Tessa Thompson, love that. I don't know what's going on with that character necessarily. When I saw her doing the ads and the commercials and that thing, I thought there was a good sense of humor they could be going with it.
Right.
I love every single thing Tessa Thompson has ever done, ever, for always and eternity. I think that I could have a whole TV show of her. I could have a whole movie franchise. I don't know. And instead, they kind of turned her into a jaded, bugged, bothered character who's kind of doesn't have time for all this bullshit. And I don't think that that's the right direction to take. I want her to become more of the hero of that world. And maybe we can go in that direction. But it basically goes, she's the jaded mayor, king, president, leader of Asgard. Queen, I guess, of Asgard, and then she goes on the mission, and then is sidelined for the end of it. And it's
right.
It felt like maybe they're punishing Tessa Thompson, kind of like, wait, why did you just drop my favorite character and one of my favorite characters in the MCU, or at least my favorite actors? Don't know what's going on there quite. Maybe the lore helps explain that in some way, or maybe it'll pay off in a roundabout way. I don't know. Otherwise, seeing Hemsworth's brother play Thor, seeing Matt Damon come back on the stage show playing Loki, seeing Sam O'Neill from Jurassic Park fame playing Odin, and then there was and then Melissa McCarthy, and Melissa McCarthy's husband apparently had a cameo there, which I didn't notice in real time.
I'm glad you didn't catch that in real time.
I did not. I saw it after the cast.
Yeah. So I saw that because when the moment they were panning. So again, this all takes place in the tourist resort now known as Asgard. One of the things they have for the attendees is that they do this live play, and we already saw this in a previous Thor movie, and they brought everyone back again. So yeah, you had your Matt Damon, you had Sam Neill, you had Luke Hemsworth there. That was another moment where the guy next to me was just like, "Are you serious, Matt Damon again?" So I don't know if it's one of those
might
like
be a hater. I
don't maybe
was that you?
but then,
was that you? Rene?
no, I swear that was not me. That was not me. I had no idea who this guy was, but he did laugh at a lot of other stuff, like genuinely too. So I don't know. Maybe I was sitting next to Jimmy Kimmel, because we all know he hates Matt Damon. So
yeah, that makes sense.
but when Melissa McCarthy broke through the paper portal, I laughed out loud for sure, because that was definitely a funny moment, because it's unexpected, right? And the fact that she's playing Hela, I thought that was really, really hilarious. The cheap, corny effects they would have on stage, like the hammer that's flying, but it's being pulled by string. Like, that stuff was hilarious to me for sure. But yeah, when they did the curtain call, I saw he just sneaked his way over to the curtain call. I guess he was maybe the stage director or something like that. Yeah. And I was like, oh, there he is. There's good old, the hubby there, because they can't seem to do anything without each other. So, but I thought that was really, really funny how he like sneaked in there right at the curtain call moment. So yeah. Also, another tidbit too, they do show him a couple of times. One of the tour guides or the whatever that is like explaining something. Like, for example, you see him explaining to the attendees, the audience there, about Mjolnir as it's in pieces under the glass and everything like that. It was at one point Thor's roommate in this series of shorts that you would find as a DVD extra on the Thor releases. So I did find it really funny that they brought that dude back also, just to still play within the universe there. So yeah.
Good call.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
The cameos were solid. And then the acting overall, we already know the Guardians crew. They didn't have a ton to do in this movie.
Yeah.
But they're obviously that's a beloved, those characters, and they're good. They were good at that for the little screen time they had. We got to talk about. We already mentioned Idris Elba being in it for a moment near the end.
Yeah.
I have a couple more questions about Eternity, but maybe I'm just being too metaphysical about it. I want to piggyback on something you said earlier. Kat Dennings have never found her character redeeming in any way ever, and every time that character's ever been on screen, I go, oh, damn it. I loved WandaVision, did not like that. Any Thor movie, anytime she's ever been on any screen, even that actress, I have beef. I know I sound like a hater. I'm the buddy I saw it with was like, yeah, same. Don't want that character.
Yeah, interesting.
I've never found it funny. And maybe there's certain people who find that funny. For whatever reason, it just rubs me the wrong way. And that's my hot take there. It's just really more of just like a shitty opinion. But the Russell Crowe as a
thank you. Yes, I do want to talk about this. Yeah.
Comedy gold, literally. Not only that, how often do we see Russell Crowe do comedy? I was trying to think of it. He was really good at that, and maybe he's playing into the Russell Crowe of it all, and he has a head start, because it's silly to see Russell Crowe, super serious guy, super angry, drunky guy, in real life / the characters he plays, who knows, making fun of himself. Plus, as far as a Donald Trump parody goes, and I'm not going to get political, but I'm watching, I mentioned to my friend, he goes, oh my God, you were right, because he's doing the hand gesture thing, the way he's talking, the way he's making fun of other people, and like putting them down in a very dismissive way, and then talking himself up. The gold, taking himself so seriously, the vanity, all of that. I thought that was, maybe it was subtext, maybe it was totally unintentional. I don't think so, but Russell Crowe was damn funny. And it was also a weird thing to do with Zeus. I wasn't expecting that at all. So maybe that made it funnier.
Right, yeah.
Russell Crowe on the pedestal, Zeus literally on the pedestal, and then just everyone in the audience is like rolling their eyes and laughing at him in real life. Right. I don't know. What were you going to say about the Russell Crowe?
No, so yeah, I'm glad you brought this up, because I think this goes towards, again, the whole switch of how they treat a certain type of characters, right? So when we were introduced to Anthony Hopkins as Odin, Odin was a very stoic, serious, God and all that stuff like that, right? God in his own right. And when he was trying to teach, whatever to Thor and Loki and all that, he was a very respected thing. When they made this switch with Thor as being a little bit more comedic, a little bit more funny, now it seems like all the gods are humorous or have their own quirks and everything like that. So when the Russell Crowe character of Zeus came up on screen, I wasn't expecting him to be like this really goofy, over the top, so full of himself parody of a god or a Zeus like god and all that, because that's kind of what it came across. It was like a parody, right? Like a Mel Brooks version of Zeus,
Yep.
But the way Russell played it, he played it so perfectly. It was really, really funny. And, he has done comedy before. I mean, I think one of his best comedic parts was Jean Valjean in Les Miserables. So I thought that was really, he was like really funny. I thought
you were being serious.
His singing was just like hysterical. It was just really, really funny. What happened?
Okay, you're not wrong in that it was funny. It was definitely not, that's one of the things that Russell Crowe's like, his whole deal is he's too serious. And I'm trying to think of, like, I know he's had little throwaway lines, or like his timing in A Beautiful Mind. There are moments where his character is like,
sure,
it's not comedy, but it's the timing and the way he'll say things.
Right.
I don't know why he hasn't, like, in theory, his career after like LA Confidential or something could have gone down a totally different track where he is just maybe like, I don't know, like I'm thinking of someone who's can do serious, like John Hamm, famous for being Don Draper, but has real comedy chops. And
oh my God,
starts with that and has been doing more of that than anything else. He could have had a majority comedy career. Absolutely, that was it. The Nice Guys, but he's playing the straight man. Like
but
right.
like you said,
he has a silly one.
Right, but like you said, he does have the moments, where he comes across as funny. It's the timing of things, right? And it's true. This is the first time we're seeing him pure comic right now. Like, it's pure comedy. There wasn't silly. Yeah, it was so silly, so over the top. The only moment where there was a sense of seriousness was at the end, in one of the post-credits scenes that we got, where he was like being very serious and very like upset and pissed off and all that stuff, because the way his character is treated in this movie, Thor comes to him asking for help. He wants to build a god army to go against Gorr. Right now, Russell or Zeus, he doesn't want to create panic. He doesn't take this thing so seriously. He kind of like throws it, like kind of brushes off his shoulders, like, oh, he's not going to be able to accomplish what he's going to accomplish, so no need to cause a panic and all that stuff. And he has this really, really over the top accent, Greek accent and all that. And he's just like, it's like really, really hilarious. But Thor gets pissed off and they kind of have a thing, and Thor ends up killing Zeus. At least that is what we see in the movie, the context of the movie, right? And that also surprised me, because I'm like, oh, we're now having our main characters kill like other gods right now, just like, whoa,
day to be a god,
right? Like, holy cow, okay, they're just going off the rail here. So and again, I don't know if this was something that happened in the comics as well. I don't know anything about that, but that was for me extremely surprising. But as far as having Russell there as this character, I did like how he handled the comedy aspect of it. The character itself, it was interesting to see.
We also get to meet Hercules through that.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about the so that's part of the post credit stuff that we'll save that for its own section. Okay. But yeah, hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. But before we continue, I wanted to quickly talk about Bulletproof Coffee. Bulletproof Coffee is my favorite coffee of choice to start off my mornings with. Why? Because it's clean coffee. What does that mean? Well, one, there are no chemicals in it. Why? Because they go through this multi-step process of making sure that all of their beans are fully clean and free of any chemicals, so that when you get the beans delivered to you, it is the pure beans, the pure coffee, the goodness that you've been wanting, the taste, the flavor, and the nutritional value as well, without worrying about any added chemicals or anything else put into the mix there. It also doesn't have that weird acidic taste that some coffees give you. I don't know how about you, but for me, some coffees kind of give me that weird sensation in my stomach, makes me a little burpy, and it kind of drags me down a little bit instead of really waking me up, which is something that I need from my coffee every day. Bulletproof also offers a lot of keto-friendly snacks and supplements, anything that you need to kind of add to your everyday nutritional needs, add to your diet, and make you, and pretty much transforms the way you feel every day. So for a limited time, if you use this code on that you see on the screen right now, LOWKEY GEEK, all caps, one word, you can get 15% off your order. So what is it better than that, right? Check out the link in the description of this episode. Use this code, get yourself your discount, and make your mornings a little bit more bulletproof with Bulletproof Coffee. Now, back to the episode. So that's Russell Crowe. Was there anything else within the context of the movie that stood out to you? I mean, I agree. The whole play thing I thought was pretty hilarious. Like, that was like one of the definite pure comedic spots for me. And Russell Crowe was just a surprise. I have a feeling a lot of people may not find it as funny. But, you know, it hit me, right? Just like how it hit you. Yeah. So
that the audience in general, that would seem to be a favorite moment for sure.
Yeah.
Before we go into closing up and post-credits, all that, did you already rank your Thor movies in this episode? Have you? I'm guessing, you know, most people's I think are going to be the same, but do you want to do that real quick?
Yeah, we could do that real quick. So as far as where this falls within the Thor movies, I would say Ragnarok is my number one. The first Thor is my number two. This is number three, and number two, Dark World is the last, is number four, because Dark World is definitely very weak, and for the most part I found extremely boring.
If you go over the average MCU ranking list, it's the bottom most movie on the most lists. Almost everyone says that, and there's some people who are the harsh defenders, but it's only in response to being like, no, everyone says it's bad, no, it's actually good, but like they protest a little loudly. My list is similar to yours, except I have this as my number two. Again, I'm biased to the Taika Waititi of it all. But as far, if you actually ask me on quality of movie other than that, and story and plot development, acting, etc., honestly, I'm not sure. But I'm putting this at my 2 spot and the original Thor at my 3 spot. The other question I have for you, you go to eternity. It's your whole life's mission. You've killed a bunch of gods. You land there. What are you doing with that wish? But also, in seriousness, why did Christian Bale's character not ask to also be resurrected? You don't just get to say, like, you get a wish. Like, there was that making clear you can make anything happen. If you can make all gods die, you could definitely bring back a tiny little girl who's like, it would take like 7 of her to make one Thor, and he was going to kill all the gods. You can definitely bring yourself and her back. So it's like, oh my gosh, who will take care of my daughter? Like, you, dumbass. Like, why? That's one thing I don't like in these movies is there's this open-ended plot device, and they use it only to move forward a very specific plot moment. Because his character was smart enough to do a lot of things successfully, including almost defeating Thor.
Right.
And yet he did not think, oh, I could ask for 2 names to be on the... Hey, can I get a +1 on the guest list? That's so stupid to me.
Well, I guess they draw the line in commas when it comes to
you don't
wishes.
Get to, and,
right,
and also,
yeah, exactly.
One on sentence, and can I please... Oh, and ice cream, also.
When you start having sub-bullet points within your initial bullet point, I mean...
Bring back my immediate family. Maybe the mother was such a horrible person. He's like, nah, I'd rather die. No, there's a way to word that, is all I'm saying.
Right.
But in seriousness, my other thought was when they're bringing that daughter back, and then he's saying who's going to take care of, and then Natalie Portman's like, don't worry about it. Natalie Portman just died. My thought was I really wish that Thor had been like, yeah, no problem, buddy. And then right before Christian Bale's character died, it's just go over and just kill the little girl in front of him. His whole life's mission, he was humiliated by the gods. He turned his whole mission to killing all the gods. He then has a beautiful moment of no, love is the answer. You don't want justice, you want love. You don't want revenge, you want love. And then he brings the little girl back with his one wish, and then he just Just
And just
could have
smites
easily,
her.
and be like, fuck, you don't ever come for the king. That would have been great. Okay, it's obviously not nice, but
I think if they brought Kenneth Branagh back to direct this movie,
yeah,
that could have been a huge possibility at the end.
everyone dies at the end on some Shakespeare stuff. The other, this is actually a genuine question, is Jane's character goes to Valhalla, and they
Hmm.
said you only get to go to Valhalla if you died in battle, which was a funny point earlier in the movie when his friend was like, "No, I'll go to Valhalla." He goes, "You're still alive. The battle
You're
is
still
over,
alive.
so you don't go to Valhalla." He's like, "Oh no, let me fight then," which was funny. But Jane technically, like the fight was over, and Christian Bale's character like hadn't tapped out yet, so technically the battle's still going, and he dies a little after her. So in that case, maybe that's what's happening. I was also trying to figure out if they were making some because they go with cancer in this movie, and that's affected so many
Yeah,
people so sincerely that that's a tough one to pull off, especially in a
sure.
comedy. Part of me thought, for at least for a minute, that they were trying to make some statement she died in the battle against cancer, and like that there was some deeper thing going there. My guess, though, is she counted as a death because her wounds were from the or like because she sacrificed her body in order to do this fight, and she died right before Christian Bale. Is there anything real there, or am I just reading too much into a small
I think
thing?
I think you are reading a little bit too much into it. I think the way
Maybe.
I looked at it was, um, it's still considered a battle because they were battling Gore, right? So it's
Hmm.
her and Thor.
But the
She
battle was
did
over mostly.
well, yeah,
Like he's not.
but she sustained a lot of the hurt during that battle. While
So did
she's
that
also
woman earlier when they said no, the battle's over.
no,
Unless he's just
but
trying to convince her to fight. Maybe that's not.
but it led to her dying. See, at least with Lady. So what happened was Lady Sif in the movie, as Thor is learning about Gore going around killing gods and all that, and he goes to his friend because one of the things he saw was that Lady Sif was in trouble. She goes and she sees that she's lying on the ground. Her arm has been completely severed, and she said she's basically ready to die an honorable death because she blah 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 this, and she wants to go to Valhalla. But basically Thor is like, but you're still alive, so, and the battle's already over, and she's like, oh no, like then it's not gonna work. So the way I took it was that she wasn't really dying yet. She was ready to die. And if you left her there, she, I think eventually she would have died. Jane was already on the way to going. She was already dying, right? So, because she did fight a battle, and eventually that battle led to whatever caused her to die. Hence, she is ready to go into Valhalla and plus since she became the mighty Thor, she is considered a god. So that was another reason it all played
Okay.
together there
Okay.
too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
why when she died in Thor's arms, you see the gold dust and her evaporating and all that.
I'm
If
just
you looked at all the
dying.
gods who
Yep.
died, they all died the same way. Like that, I just died in your arms.
Kissing
And now,
Thor.
yes. Oh
There
well,
were
who?
three.
Yeah,
Can we
who
talk about how
wouldn't
there were
want to
three kissing
die?
scenes in this
Um,
movie? That's a lot of kissing scenes for such.
it's definitely a lot. However, I didn't mind it so much because I think I was just really happy to see
Yeah.
Jane and Thor back together again. Because if
Oh yeah.
anything, the chemistry they have is pretty. When they showed, okay, this was another part that I laughed out loud in for real. When they were showing them rollerblading for the first time, like as they're hanging out as a couple, I could not stop laughing with that because that is like that's the kind of comedy that will kill me every time, and they're like watching a scary movie together, and he gets freaked out and like pointing Mjolnir at the screen. Like that was just some of the funniest shit I've seen, and genuine too. Like for me, it was like I genuine laughter from me during that moment. So it was just really nice seeing them together again. It's unfortunate that it doesn't look like we're going to be getting that again anytime soon because of what happened at the end of the movie. But to answer your question, that is the way I interpreted it there at the end there.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
If you could bring back one character in the whole MCU, who you got?
Who would it be?
You go to Eternity.
All right. So if I was able to beat Christian Bale's Gore to eternity,
Yes.
I kind
Yeah.
of did the mush out of the
Uh-huh.
way,
Yeah. Well, actually, that's also another thing that bothered me. Okay, I got one more piece of beef. I'll let you think about that. Well, Thor and their whole mission, he's all about saving the kids. That's great, dude. Save the kids, get him out of there. And he goes, and Jane goes, oh wait, don't forget. The whole reason we're here is to keep that guy from going into eternity. Oh, and he just went into eternity. Like slowly, very far away, injured, if I recall. And so he's kind of like crawling towards eternity. And they're like, oh yeah, that. Oh, let me say another line really quickly, and then yeah, I guess we'll go. Oh man, he beat us there. I don't know if it was whoever touches it first or whoever asks the question first. Like you're playing like a little kid, what's home base? And like, oh, I beat you at the race because I. But so that concept is obviously it's ridiculous. I like this movie, I promise. But there's a few things about these kind of movies where it's like it's so silly. Why would they not have been like, hey, make sure no matter what, even if like what you're gonna save 20 kids' lives, one of them Heimdall's son. These kids are super duper important, but you're gonna let this guy kill all the gods and risk it on a little speech. No, it's a plot device. So Chris Hemsworth could give this lovely little speech at the end about love overpowering revenge or whatever.
Yeah.
So let's just pretend though it works that way, where you elbow dude and you step on him, and then you go, "Oh wait, I get a wish."
Yeah.
But you're in the MCU. It's not in real life. I'm not asking.
Sure.
That's a little too deep.
Yeah.
Who you got?
Agent Coulson.
Okay.
Yeah, because now I didn't watch Agents of Shield at all because it just looked like that was going to be a terrible series.
I did.
But I did like that character a lot. And it would have been interesting to see him being a reoccurring character in a lot of these movies, especially like the more recent ones and all that. Kind of like how we see that other agent in the Ant-Man movies, Randall Park's agent, Wu. It's kind of, I could only see it being something akin to that. So he would be my choice as to who I would revive and bring back to life. Now, Agent Coulson with the powers of eternity, just like Thor's daughter now that would be even more hilarious for me.
I like playing this question. Obviously, my answer would be Spider-Ham, and not even that but that he would just bring him into the main MCU. That's obviously what I would want.
Yeah.
I'm also like, it's so weird to me that you not only would you be preventing Christian Bale's character from making their super evil wish.
Yeah.
You could also make your own wish and bring back, I don't know, Iron Man, Black Widow, Frigga, your friggin' mom. Like, this should have been a much bigger priority for them than it was. Of course, it's a movie thing. I don't know if you bring back Groot, do you get 2 Groots now? Or I don't know how that works.
Probably.
Oh, man, I have so many options. I'm just going through a list of characters who died, and there's so many. And some recently. Oh, goodness gracious. I don't know how they're going to handle, after Black Panther 2, we might know how they handle that, and that might be one of my answers.
Right.
But most realistically, like, definitely Spider-Ham. That's definitely my answer, for sure.
Okay. That's a good one. It would be great to see a Spider-Ham-like character, version of him in the MCU. If we'll ever get it, I don't know. But if you had the wish from eternity, that would have already happened by now. So that would be a lot of fun to say. Yep.
This is worth it. I know I've been silly, but I'm going through this list. Dude's brother, sister, mom, and dad are dead, and that's part of the whole. We can talk about it a lot, but like him being lonely and his whole thing being about I need love. That's a sweet moment. They do spend some time on it. Dude's got a lot of. This dude could have brought back, if he said, "Bring back my immediate family," as this little wish, and instead he was like, "Nah, I'm feeling." God, what is so stupid. Okay, sorry. All right, feel free to wrap up. However,
it's about
however you see fit.
Love. It's about love, and love will keep us together. Dun, dun, dun.
Kissing Jane Foster forever.
Kissing Jane Foster.
Oh no, why is she with Heimdall now? Because I screwed up.
I don't think they're gonna end up being together like that though. Because like I said,
brought back Jane too. Gosh, now I'm so mad. It said he's got his boy Heimdall macking on Jane in heaven forever, and his family's dead.
So speaking of, so let's go into, let's carry on or move on, and let's talk about the post-credit scenes. Well, the movie ends in a way, basically, Jane passes on. She floats into the ether and all that. Thor is now taking care of Gorr's daughter, who also has the powers of eternity. So she's like this little, think of Jack from The Incredibles. That's kind of like somewhat similar to what she can do, at least from what we know. We just see the lasers coming out of her eyes and all that stuff. And
Wait,
then
in this movie we saw that?
yeah.
Oh, when they're doing the montage stuff.
When basically when Thor is eat your breakfast, and she like tries to zap him and like die you devil whatever, which was really funny. But now she is also managing and handling Stormbreaker because Mjolnir is back in Thor's hands now because Jane passed away. And it looks like they're going to be battling and doing adventures together like that. So very cute. I'm curious to see how we're going to see that progress and move on in future iterations of in the MCU. But first post-credits scene that we see that Zeus is not dead. And he is just recovering from his injury, even though he's been smited through the chest there. But he's amongst his harem of ladies taking care of him. But he's at first I thought he was monologuing to himself, and talking to like all the ladies next to him. But then we noticed that he is talking about his anger and how Thor needs to be handled to somebody else. And we finally get introduced to Hercules. Hercules is his son, and it looks like this is going to be a new character now within the Thor lore universe, what have you. I don't know how important this character is going to end up being in the MCU as a whole, but in the comic books, Hercules is a prominent character and is actually one of the original Avengers from way back in the day. So I am curious to see how this character is going to play out in the MCU. Is it going to be another situation where he starts off bad but then becomes good because him and Thor become buddy and becomes like another buddy cop movie with little daughter in hand there. So I don't know. Okay. What did you think about that introduction to the new character?
I have basically nothing. I don't know. Like all that the credit things do are things that I forget about later, and I Google after I see those characters again. I'm like, oh yeah, that were in that post-credit scene. If you know the lore, those things are much more enjoyable, I'm sure. Every single time I've seen a post-credit scene, I Google it or ask my buddy, like, hey, is that a person? I know who Hercules is in normal world, but I had no idea that he was an early Avenger type dude. So that's interesting. It makes me think I might be more disappointed by these because I don't like God stories. Like I don't lean towards those as mentioned, but yeah, that's about it. If Russell Crowe gets his own spin-off show where he runs for office or something, I would love that. That'd be great. Give me that comedy. That's all. Throw in some Comedy Central, share the wealth, Disney. That's all I got.
Nice. Okay, cool. And then after the credits are said and done, we do get treated to another scene. And that's where we actually see Jane Foster, the gorgeous Natalie Portman, appear, and she meets Heimdall. We get to see Heimdall. We haven't seen him since his untimely death during Infinity War. And he is basically said to her that you are now in Valhalla and we are hanging out in Valhalla together and all that stuff like that. And that's pretty much how it ends there. So it's nice to see.
Then he says, I have my own Mjolnir and I'd like to introduce you. And then then it just shows them kissing a lot, and then the credits. Right. And then it's over. Right. Yeah.
And then he asked someone to kill his son on Earth so that his son can also join them up in Valhalla.
Nope,
and
Bale,
it becomes
I'm done. Nope, I can't. No, I refuse to continue with this line of hilarity. No, thank you.
It was great to see Heimdall, but it was also like during the movie interesting to see his son too, because his son looks like is gonna develop into a Heimdall-like character. His eyes are just not in tune yet, and they actually mentioned that in the movie that he's having problems summoning the same powers as his dad. But he's a pretty kick-ass warrior. He wants to go. His name is Astrid, but he wants to be called Axel because he's a huge Guns N' Roses fan. And if you didn't pick up from the trailer, Guns N' Roses is pretty much the soundtrack of this movie because there were a lot of GNR songs that play throughout the whole
They even
movie.
mentioned it. Somebody goes, "Yeah, GNR." speaking of which, you mentioned this earlier, them going younger. You have Love, Thor's little girl now.
Yeah.
Her Heimdall's kid, so maybe they have their own thing
Sure.
in their own type of way, like the next generation stuff. And then Hercules, also a next generation character. All three being pretty young. I don't know how old Hercules' character is. If you told me that was 16, 17, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds about right. I don't know. That's three in one movie.
Yeah.
I think you're onto something with this. Like, obviously, they're going to push younger and we already know that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, it might be a harder push than I realized before this movie. Okay.
Yeah. I think they're just trying to cover their bases right now because they know that people are getting older. It might be time for certain characters to take a back seat. Maybe the actresses attached to a lot of these characters want to do some other stuff too, so they can't always be tied down to just reprising their role over and over and over again. So I think they're just covering their bases because this brings also back our conversation that we had before. Phase 4 is all over the place right now. Like, I really don't know yet, and a lot of people don't know yet what direction they're going because we're being introduced to so many different pockets here. We don't see that kind of overarching storyline that is blending all of these pockets together yet. So I think it's safe to say that moving forward, maybe there'll be like three main pockets, right? Maybe, you'll have your gods and your space universe stuff here. You'll have stuff that's on the ground here, and then you'll have another thing over here, right? And then maybe you will get crossover from these things, little by little or from time to time. But we don't know yet what's happening in this phase 4 because if you include the TV shows, then there's so much shit happening right now, right? And we still don't know what that through line is. We might get it soon. We might be told more soon later, rather than later. I don't know. But again, it's with the way that this post-credit scene closes out, it's nice to see Jane still around. They could use her when she's available or what have you. And Heimdall's around. So could this mean that maybe we could see him again in another iteration? I don't know. But at least they're kicking it, together out there in Valhalla, hanging out. We don't know who else is there too. So it'll be really interesting to see if we get to see Valhalla more fleshed out. Who else are they hanging out with, right? It'll be really cool.
Iron Man is also going to be dating Jane Foster. It'll be like this weird thruple.
Wow.
And then
Jane gets around.
It's going to get wild. Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, Jane gets around. So that'll be the new OnlyFans only series for Marvel, and that is Jane.
Sorry.
There's something about Jane. But yeah, so as we close out this episode, any other thoughts about Thor Love and Thunder, closing arguments about anything? I don't know.
No, yeah, correction. I said that Hercules was like 16 or 17. I don't know. Maybe I looked at someone else. I forgot. It was the Ted Lasso star. That dude is definitely not 16 or 17.
No.
So he's not going to be younger. He's a next generation, theoretically, but no. I'm curious.
He's definitely a younger person, yeah.
My final thought, and maybe you want to speak on it, but we didn't know where we were going at this point of phase 1 either. They haven't lost me yet. And if we do a meetup movie, and if these next 4 or 5 movies are good, which the fact that I'm projecting they're going to be good means they're probably all going to flop, because I'm always wrong about that, of how the audience reception will be after Top Gun. But it's possible they've got 4 out of 5 home runs coming up, and then we get to have the everybody teaming up type movies more, and then we'll really start to see, because I don't know at what point, like based on when Thanos is properly introduced, and based on when we realize, they're all coming together for this one big thing, that's way later in phases 1 through 3. So right now, they got me back on their good graces a little more with this movie. In some ways, I'm more skeptical and more curious about the future. But after so many flops, this one being one I liked more, it basically just like, okay, I'm now stocks are up on Marvel in my opinion today, and we'll have to see what the next couple years hold.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm still into the Marvel series. I'm still into the MCU. It's fun movies. They're fun movies to watch. If anything, this proved to me more and more that they're also treating this like they treat the comic books, you know, where you do get your little storyline here, you get your little storyline there, and then later on down the line, eventually there'll be a crossover or people will meet up. Other characters are in other people's comic books, you know, vice versa, all that stuff like that. And we're getting that a lot in these movies and TV series and everything. So I guess my whole thing is like, what is not the end game, but what is going to be the next major threat? Right, because again, we're getting a lot of these like one-shot villains and all that. We haven't got anyone that has been continuing, with the exception of Loki when we were introduced to Kang there, and we don't know yet what they're doing with that character. But we were told that could potentially be the next Thanos-like villain in the MCU. But like you said, we could be seeing that 3 years, 4 years later down the line, right? So it's a lot of like more world building and more universe introductions and more character introductions, so that maybe they could just build up this big roster of they could just like handpick, right? I'm like, all right, this group here, you'll do your own thing in the movies. This group here, you got the TV series, all that stuff like that, you know? So, but yeah, as far as the movie's concerned, definitely not one of my, or in my opinion, it's like Marvel's strongest. I would probably give it a 3 out of 5 stars. But 3 out of 5 for a Marvel movie is not terrible, in my opinion, you know, because again, if you compare this to probably, in my opinion, the worst Marvel movie, which is Thor Dark World, I would give that like a 2. Right. So, you know, definitely not one of the worst for sure. And I'm sure for other people like yourself, this will rank a lot higher. So I think for me, it just didn't really hit all the way for me. But again, like I say all the time, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what in the hell we think. What matters most is what all of you think. Very, very curious to hear your thoughts about the movie. Was there something that we didn't cover that you wanted to bring up that you found hilarious, disappointing, something in between? Let us know in the comments. Love to hear your thoughts about the movie and everything that we talked about. And before we sign off, Blake, where can people find you online?
Go to Letterboxd, and I'm user Blake Wolf SSN, BlakeWolfSSN, where you can see me give this movie a 4-star rating out of 5.
Nice. And as for myself, you can find Lowkey Geek on all the social media stuff that you see on the screen right there. Again, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and also follow, if you're an audio listener, to the Lowkey Geek channel there on your podcast platform of choice. And if it prompts you, leave a nice rating and say something nice about our little stuff that we do there. But I'm Rene. This is Blake. This has been Movie Time. Stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, and we'll catch you all next week. All right, peace out, everyone.